so that we can put that up on YouTube later. And I'll share my screen. I think we are live.
We are live.
Yay. Howdy everyone. Happy Friday. I hope y'all are doing well. My name is Taylor Dolezal. I'm joined by Rosemary Wang, and this is HashiCorp Live. So I have some slides for everyone that I'm gonna share here. So today we are going to be discussing Consul ACLs with Vault and with Terraform. We're going to talk about, how we configure Consul and Vault to, how we get those to work together, and then obviously using Terraform to kind of glue that interaction together. And we're going to be talking about some really fun things when it comes to that configuration, like dynamic keys from Vault and just securing your Consul cluster. And it's going to be a lot of fun, I promise. I won't spoil anymore. We'll just kind of get right into it. So, like I had said, my name is Taylor Dolezal. I'm a developer advocate here at HashiCorp. If you want to find me anywhere on the internet, if you search for only Dol, that's probably a really good place to start. Some fun things I like beyond infrastructure are just books and reading. So if you have any good suggestions on books to check out, I am all ears. And if you'd like some fun ones to read, obviously, please hit me up, and I'd be more than happy to help out on that front. And then I would love to turn it over to Rosemary to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, I'm Rosemary. I'm also a developer advocate at HashiCorp. You might have seen me on the stream before. I'm back on the stream, which is going to be pretty fun. If you have not told from the picture behind me, I love plants. I am trying to make a garden in my house or a jungle. That's not happening so far. I'm also dealing with some fungus gnats. So if anybody has any recommendations on how to fix that, I would appreciate them. So actually my Twitter handle and GitHub handle and Medium handle for that matter is Jack of all trades, master of none 08, Jotman 08. If you want to shorten it, it has nothing to do with my name. So if you just need to remember it, it's Jack of all trades, master of none 08.
That's so funny. I was going to ask that question where you got the inspiration to come up with that. It took me a second when I saw your handle for the first time to be like, what is that? It's definitely not your name. And so I think I searched for that acronym and landed on Jack of all trades, master of none. So
yes. And the 08 happened because in Chinese culture, 8 is considered lucky. And for some peculiar reason, everyone in my family decided that they were always going to append some formulation of 8 to the end of everything. So that's why the 08 exists.
So cool. Cool. So looking at our agenda for today, just to kind of give you a good outline of things that we're going to focus on. HashiCorp tools. What tools are we working with today? We're going to be working with Terraform, with Consul, and with Vault. So if you didn't hear your favorite tool, apologies. Stay tuned because you might just see that tool pop up within the coming weeks. We're going to be going over access control lists and really looking at how we can configure Consul to be more secure on that front and allow who gets access, who does not. Finally, with time permitting, we'll take a look at extending this infrastructure and some different tips, tools, tricks that we can use. We're going to try to take a look at consul-template and just get a sense of what is possible once we have all these things set up. So without further ado, it is code time, and I would love to switch this over to Rosemary's screen, and we can get the fun started.
Yes. It says, oh, yes, I will continue to share my screen. Whoa, that's not the right desktop. Something just happened. Oh, okay. Technical difficulties. Alrighty.
Cool.
So anybody in the chat, if you can't see any of the text or you can't see something I'm typing, just feel free to drop in the chat and say, please increase the font size, or please retype, or please explain. This is, zoom in once, okay. Yes, so we're gonna zoom in once. But basically, the story behind what happened and why this thing exists, or why I decided to write about it, there's a blog. I'm not going to show the link to it. I'll attach it later in the chat, or Taylor, if you can find it, or someone else can find it. It's a blog on HashiCorp. But basically, I was trying to get a hold of a Consul instance that I had spun up in my AWS account. And it was about 3 months old. I had not touched it for 3 months. So you can imagine, first of all, my AWS bill was probably not happy with me. That's fine. I got it. It was okay. But the unfortunate situation was that I couldn't get into it. And I really wanted to get into it because I didn't remember what I put into it and I didn't want to redeploy it. It was this whole discussion. But basically, I dug through some of my files, and I keep some of my secrets in a local file, by the way. I don't put them to GitHub, but I do keep them in a local file on occasion for testing, etc. And so I tried to use that Consul token, or that basically that secret to get into Consul that I had spun up, and it turns out it worked. It was a 3-month-old token, and like I was sitting there like, oh no, this is terrible. I've just broken the key rule of security, which is I have a static token. I completely and utterly forgot about it. And if someone did actually access my machine, or if I accidentally did commit it to GitHub, and I forgot it for 3 months, someone could get into my Consul instance, and who knows what they would do with my Consul, instance. I don't know. I'm just saying, if anybody has ideas, I'm soliciting for suggestions on how you might compromise Consul. I'm not so sure you can make a Bitcoin miner out of it, so I don't think it's there. But it got me thinking, how could I have managed it better? I don't want to be managing Consul ACLs and ACL tokens. For those who are less familiar with Consul, Consul has a lot of complex security concepts, and they don't all completely fit together conceptually, or at least not very easily. And I have to give out a shout out to Jono, who's been doing a great job trying to organize this content better. So one of the things that is important to know about Consul is that when you go to Consul, right, you want to make sure you protect who's going into it. So Taylor, who would you not want going into your Consul instance, for example, if you were in an organization?
So I would say just really anyone external. I wouldn't feel safe with anyone outside of my team or my company really getting into that. In the past I've unfortunately had the experience of ransomware and some people that have compromised. There was the names withheld to protect the innocent, where there was a Elasticsearch cluster that got exposed to the internet because there was someone who wanted to work from home, and not enough due diligence was done on those ports, and that entire Elasticsearch cluster, thank goodness there was nothing critical or vital in that cluster, but all of that got deleted, and someone was requesting some Bitcoin for that. So those are the types of people that I would definitely not want getting access to my cluster.
Yeah,
personally.
See, and that's the thing, right? You really want to make it easy, right? And Consul uses this concept of access control lists. Who's allowed to do what in your Consul cluster? And in theory, it's supposed to be really simple. You're supposed to be able to say, I don't want, let's say, or if I come in or if I log in with this token is scoped to only do certain things. It's a little bit like an OAuth token. You would basically specify the scope of what you want them to do or not want them to do. And so when you go into Consul, you're supposed to be able to do this with a token, which I will show you my secret. Yes, everybody gasp. There are secrets. They are going on the screen. Don't worry. This is local, and I will delete them after. So you can go ahead and look at them. And basically, when you log into Consul, you'll be able to see some functionality there. And the ACL is the system that gives you the access to, whatever you want to do. So when you declare an ACL, there's a policy associated with it. In this case, this is a bootstrap token, so it's global management. If I look at the global management policy, it means unlimited access. Yes, we all want unlimited access. But it does, it does tell you how much access you do get, et cetera. So policies are what govern what kind of access you get. And as part of the access, you get a token. And that token is how you can log in and get information or configure information in Consul. So that's basically what the background is. So for me, when this all happened, I had created a global management token, and I had basically unlimited access to my Consul cluster for 3 months. And so I was like, okay, let's go back and let's do this a better way. Rather than say I'm going to have a static token that I'll save forevermore, I would like to have one that only lasts for an hour, maybe 30 days, something that limits how long I have access to Consul. And so then I said, well, why not throw Vault into the mix? Because Vault is a secrets management, has a secrets management capability, so I might as well do that. So that's what you see here. I actually did this all locally. If you're curious for the code for yourself, you can go to Consul Vault Terraform. Come on, 08. By the way, this is my first set of typing and talking in a while, and I make a ton of mistakes while I do it. So anybody who sees a pebcac, I expect you to point that out in the chat. All right, so there's the link if you're interested in the code base, but all of this can be done locally, and it's a way for you to practice how you can set up Vault, do all of this dynamically. So I'm gonna just close this thing here for a second. All right, so first things first, we have a Docker Compose. I know a lot of people do a lot of different things. They use a lot of different bootstrapping mechanisms. They use a lot of different stacks, their shipyard. I'm using Docker Compose today, so you can just read it. The idea is that I have Consul, which is running as a server, and I have Vault. Vault is running in dev mode. It is unsealed, all the whole rigmarole of managing Vault. I'm not going to go into, that's assuming that you've already done that. But basically what's really nifty about HashiCorp Vault is that you can also configure it to work with Consul. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create an association in Vault to Consul. Otherwise, it could care less. It doesn't really know where to go. Right now, Consul and Vault have no awareness of each other. So let's do that. All right, so Taylor, let's see. How familiar are you with Vault?
So I've used Vault and Consul a little bit. I'd say, it's definitely Consul more for key value store and just some configuration management with consul-template. With Vault, I've successfully stood it up locally and been able to get those secrets. I'd say probably a grand total of about 5 times. So haven't been able to really hit the pavement on that one too much, but somewhat familiar with those commands and then secret engines and things of that nature.
Cool. So basically, Consul Secrets Engine. Can you kind of extrapolate what Consul Secrets Engine might be?
Absolutely. So with Vault Secrets engines, you have the ability to, spin up, there's one called like Cubbyhole, and that's the ability to spin up personal secrets. Say if you might want to share a secret with somebody inside of your corporation, your organization. That's honestly a really good one to start with and just start understanding how that works. That one is locked to just you and your user account, so you don't have to worry about that being seen by anyone outside of that. And then there are other secrets engines like AWS, for instance, if you wanted to get, temporary user tokens and, that are associated with roles, things of that nature.
Yeah, so what you were just mentioning is exactly what happens. Like basically all of these are plugins. They're all ways that Vault can connect to other kinds of secrets mechanisms. So there are a couple of different ones. You could do it with Azure, you could do it with AWS service accounts, or sorry, not service accounts, AWS keys, secret access keys and stuff. You can also do it with Google service accounts, and it will handle some of the rotation and stuff for you. In this case, as you pointed out, there is a cubbyhole. So that's one secrets engine. But what we're actually going to do is enable the Consul secrets engine. And what the Consul secrets engine will do will let us will let us as Vault manage secrets related to Consul. So that is pretty much really only one thing, which is Consul tokens. So that's why we're all here. So we're going to do a secrets enable Consul, and it says successfully enable the Consul secrets engine. And then, yay, I know. I typed something correctly. Everybody, we got to celebrate in the chat. Like, I just typed like OST star something. I don't know what I was doing. But Vault secrets list, right? We'll show you all of the secrets engines you've enabled. Right now, I have a Consul secrets engine enabled. But again, I didn't define anything about Consul itself. So again, it has no awareness of this, etc. Basically, to set up a secrets engine, you have to do a series of steps, all right? And if you're curious, there is a document on it, so I'm going to attach that. But it's a lot of steps, right? You have to do this enable Consul, which is what I just did. And then you have to acquire these tokens, or you have to do, so look, this is a lot of steps. Taylor, do you like doing CLI steps? I mean, I guess that's a contentious question, but we're just gonna have you answer it anyway.
It's like, no, I like automatic configuration. No, yeah, I'd say honestly, I like that definitely over the UI. I obviously I'm a huge fan of Terraform and love talking about anything on that front. And any time that I can take that configuration step and put it into Terraform and not really have to think too much about it once I've done it right, right the first time, not having to continuously worry about that. I love those types of contexts, but definitely spinning something up and kind of that back and forth between you and the machine and the access tokens, that's always contentious and something that I, when I can avoid that, I always try to, but obviously, you always have to interact with the machine at some point in time. Like starting up an Amazon account, for instance, you can't really have you could have a machine do that, but to do the back and forth and to initiate that still is a human decision, right? And so that, there always will be a person in the mix at some point in time, but, trying to minimize that when it comes to tokens and everything else is usually my preference. But other than that, CLI is typically something I prefer.
Yeah. And I think with the thing about Vault, and the thing that I made a big mistake about Vault in general, right, is that I go in and I'll just configure it by CLI and it's done. But problematically, I don't actually remember how I configured it, right? So I could have a Consul secret, or I could have a Consul secrets engine configured, and I wouldn't actually know when I configured it, how I configured it. I would have to reverse engineer where it was. So the CLI works, and you can figure out where you've done it and how you've done it. But I'm going to actually just use Terraform. It's a little bit easier. I will say that if you are really interested and you're configuring it without Terraform, you can always do it through CLI. You can do API. You can do anything, for the most part through any SDK as well. So you're welcome to do it through any form. I'm doing it right now through Terraform because I don't want to have to remember how to configure it. But all of the API, right, all of these API calls do relate to the same schema. So anything you do by CLI, you'll generally be able to convert it to Terraform and figure out, kind of reverse engineer all of the configuration you would need to do. So what we're going to have here is that we're actually going to do all of these steps in this particular set of instructions done in Terraform. And so I'll actually show you what that looks like. So most importantly, when you configure these things through Terraform, you of course have to set up providers. In this case, I have a Vault provider. Yay, that's pretty much all we need right now. And the remainder I'll show a little later. But Vault providers, you have a couple configurations in here that you'll have to add. You'll have to tell it where to go. So where's my Vault instance? In this case, it is localhost. I have set that as part of the Vault address. So something important to understand about the environment variables, Terraform can pick up environment variables, and standard notation for Vault is usually Vault underscore the parameter. And so the providers by themselves will actually be able to recognize that standard from Vault or Consul. So as long as you remember the Vault environment variables, like how you would set your Vault CLI to connect, the provider will actually pick up those same variables. So it's kind of neat. And just because this is a temporary token, so no one at me right now. There's a vault token. It is a root token. Yes, everybody stand in shock. I know. This is a development instance. The reality is that if you were doing this in production, you probably don't want to configure your Terraform using the vault root token. You want to use the same situation that we're actually showing with Consul to Vault. You want ACLs to make sure no one has all access to Vault. You're making sure you can log in and you can retrieve it, and you're scoping who has access to what. And I'll actually show a little bit of that if we have time. I don't know if we'll have time, Taylor. We might be a little bit, slower on the code walkthrough today, but.
I did have one question too for you, Rosemary.
Yeah.
With the vault address, I see that you've specified the HTTP, and with that, does Vault typically assume that you're operating over, like TLS connection and using HTTPS for that?
Exactly. So if you're running in Vault dev mode, it runs over HTTP. It is not over HTTPS, and by default, Vault will try to attach to HTTPS. That's part of, it's the way that it's ensuring that it's secure from the get-go. In this case, if you do want to connect over HTTP, you have to be really explicit and tell it, I need to connect over HTTP.
Cool.
Yep, good question. So this is actually something that's already configured as part of this. As a result, I don't need to actually include Vault address and the Vault token in here. I can just pick that up from the command line or from the environment variables. And what I've actually started already is configuring Vault with the Consul secrets engine. So when you can configure Vault with the Consul secrets engine, there are a couple resources and documentation that you're going to want to know, and they're not all perfectly equivalent in name. So for example, when we say Consul secrets engine, the resource itself is called Consul secret backend. You'll also notice a lot of Vault terminology refers to backend. Well, there's kind of like two backends. There's the storage mechanism, and then there's the secrets engine mechanism. And both of them are referred to as backends because it's called a backend, like a plugin system, right? So the result is that both of them kind of are conflated. So just be aware when you look at the documentation for the resources, backend is used in both ways. In this case, we want Consul secret backend, and I'm going to call it Consul. And the path you can choose, I am choosing Consul just to be consistent with the CLI because that is what we typed. We typed Vault secrets enable, right? So that enable Consul, and it gave me Consul. The other important thing to configure is actually where Consul is. Again, because this is in Docker Compose, it's pointing to Consul 8500. If I resolve it by localhost, it won't know where to go. Now this is actually pretty tricky. The token here, I specifically generated for Vault. And this is actually something that is optional. I chose to do this by doing Terraform. So Terraform is going to Consul. It will create the token, and then it will pass the token using the data source to Vault. Now, I could actually do this, right? I could say variable.consul token, right? It will be up to me, though, to decide what access that token has. And so right now, this is actually a token that's scoped to something. It's actually very limited, right? It's allowing access, and we can take a look at this, if I can find it, ACL. So right now it's scoped to global management because for better or for worse, Vault actually needs global management access to Consul in order to configure the secrets engines and to configure all this stuff. Which actually fun fact, I did try to do just like ACL write. I just tried to let Vault have access to the tokens specifically and just the tokens in Consul. It didn't work, not the same. So I could not, for some reason, create like a new policy, like resource Consul ACL policy or something, and then just do something like ACL write. Apparently that does not work. You have to give it global management. So that's something to investigate further. If anybody has learned something about that, please let me know. I haven't been able to figure out what are the right policies. But basically here, it's passing a Consul token, we're not going to talk as much about that Consul token, but the Consul token itself is separate for Vault. From a security standpoint, you do want it separate. I don't know, Taylor, if you think it would be wise to put like the same token that you would typically use to manage Consul in here, right, that Vault also uses to manage Consul. That just doesn't seem very comfortable or very good security practice.
Absolutely agree. I think that any time where it makes sense, it always makes sense to kind of break out your contexts with whatever security that you're looking to set, right? Because if it's the same as, you could think of it as like a house key. Do you just give that to everyone? Do you use your house key lock at your company, at your house, at your car? You want to have different keys for different contexts. And then you have a smaller blast radius. If, say, you went to the grocery store, you lose that key. In this case, it's if you lose your key at the grocery store, I've got questions. You're losing your console key in the previous section, that's scary. But absolutely agree with you. That's always something to be mindful of, and how you divvy up your secrets.
Yeah, I'm curious though. Consul token for Vault. So let me just actually do this with Terraform. I'm not actually going to do this whole creation situation here. I'm going to comment this out because this was actually for working code. So we're going to actually break this. We're going to see if this is even something that's sensible. So what I've done right now is created a var consul token for Vault. And what I'll expect to do is actually pass in the consul token for Vault. And let's actually just configure a token manually in Consul and see what we actually get. We're going to do this because this is not secure, but I just want to make sure that you can see, and it's self-contained here. So we're going to create a Consul token. Let's create a token manually because this is how we're going to do this. So I'm going to create a manual token. It's better to restrict it to the local data center. So in this case, it's Consul DC1. In Consul, you can have the idea of multiple data centers. In this case, we only have one, so it's fine. But we'll just name this Vault role, and maybe we'll create a new policy. And this policy, I'm just going to call that Vault. And let's see, we have to create some ACL rules. There's a list of rule and policy kind of declarations. Let's actually look, Consul policy rule. As you can tell, I have been searching on this a lot lately. So ACL rules usually have some kind of resource and specification here. In this case, I'm looking for ACL write because all I want to do is write ACLs. That's all Vault needs to do, write ACLs. And so I'm going to actually do that. Oops. Maybe this will work. This may not work. Will this work?
Curious to see.
Okay. Well, that's the whole point of a live stream, right? We see if we break things. Apply an existing role, apply a policy. I'm going to apply Vault, and then I'm going to save. Okay. So now I have a token. You're going to see the token. Oh, the horror. I know. This is the horror of seeing the token. So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to give this a try. I don't know if it will work. If it won't work, I'm going to comment all this out. But let's see if this works, right? Because in the ideal situation, I would be able to create my backend in Consul secrets backend in Vault, and I should be able to connect to my Consul instance, right? And actually do all of the things that I need to do. So I am going to run Terraform plan. Let's see if this complains. Okay, so Terraform plan says one to add. And for those who are less familiar with Terraform, Taylor, do you feel comfortable giving a 30-second rundown of Terraform?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Terraform is a tool that allows you to set up infrastructure as well as configure things. It's not configuration management, it's that tool to stand up immutable infrastructure, and it's infrastructure as code. You can almost think of it as like executable documentation, and it's a really fantastic tool for sharing the shape of your infrastructure with the rest of your team or future you. That's a wonderful context for those of you that say that this is just for me. I could use Bash. It doesn't really matter. It does, because it takes time to build that context back up and really re-understand what you're trying to do. So Terraform is a fantastic tool for that. And then you can kind of look through, like right now, we're able to look through this and really get a sense of what's going on, right? Console token for Vault, Vault console secret backend. We get a sense of what's going on here and then what things are actually set up. And then Terraform does give you that ability to use variables and just work with it in a way such that you don't always have to be handling sensitive information or keeping track of what's going on with your infrastructure. If you've already stood up infrastructure, you can import it. I could talk for hours on Terraform, but I'll stop there for anyone that has any questions.
We were joking, like somehow, like I have to like run a timer and be like 30 seconds. I have to get better about explanations.
Time out.
I know. All right, so we ran into a problem, one that I vaguely expected but didn't really think about. So great, those are the best ones, right? All right, so basically what happened was that when I ran the Vault secrets, here, let me just actually show you. Vault secrets enable console, right? What happens is that creates the backend at that path, mounts/console. Problematically though, that means that this backend path has already been used. Not helpful for us, right? And if you are actually someone who has multiple instances of console or multiple instances of like various Google accounts, etc., you probably want them at different paths, different configs, etc. In this case, you probably want to just, in some ways, create the console backend separately. So in this case, I'm going to create a separate backend for HC Live. So you all get your own personal console secrets engine backend, and we will see if this works. So if I do a Terraform apply, which is auto approving, you notice that it did create. And if I do Vault secrets list, what you'll actually see is that there's a new backend of console HC Live, and the type is console. You'll also notice that there's actually a description, right? And so Rich pointed out that your Terraform code effectively becomes documentation for your infrastructure, and that's exactly what it is, right? I now realize that if I ever went back to this, 3 months from now, I would know that I created a path called console HC Live, and I used configuration. I said I have a configuration of console 8500. So if I do forget it, I can always come back here and take a look. There are also two important concepts to understand as part of this configuration as well, which is the least time to live seconds and max least time to live seconds. So the interesting part about Vault and the really powerful part about it is that it's dynamic in nature. So the tokens themselves are ephemeral. They have a lifetime, and once that lifetime is complete, right, you have to either renew or you let it kind of die out, and then you have to get a new one, get a new token, so to speak. So here, the time to live says that this particular console token, or any token created by this secret backend, will be valid for an hour. And then after that, I can either, I either have to go and request it from Vault again, or it has to be renewed. So I have to tell Vault, can you renew this for me? So as a result, it makes it really powerful for ensuring someone only has temporary access to console or to any kind of mechanism that you desire. Any questions chat-wise?
I think, have you seen anything, Rosemary, in terms of just the default TTLs, or obviously there are tons of different contexts, but do you typically see a default TTL for most things when it comes to Vault, 60 seconds, like 5 minutes, anything like that, 30 days?
I don't actually know if there is a default, default by default in console. I think or not even console, in Vault. I think it actually depends on the secrets engine. And each one has, I believe, their own default in particular. And I don't entirely remember if there's a top level default. So we can actually take a look at it. But I think it will depend on the secrets engine, for example. So one might be like this one where your duration is 768 hours. And this is for AWS. So what is 768 hours? Math.
It sounds like a month if I were to infer and totally guess. You said it was 768?
Yeah, 768 hours. Okay.
32 days.
32 days. Wow, that is roughly a month. Oddly specific though, 32 days. Anyway, so it will depend on the secrets engine itself. That is something that maybe either the people who wrote the secrets engine would have at least predetermined. In the case of the Consul secrets engine, we can actually look at that too. Consul, whoops, cancel. Consul secrets engine. In the case of the Consul secrets engine, I'm not actually sure how long the default is. Does not appear to. Oh, 768 hours. So maybe the default is 32 days.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think that in this case, right, in the case of Vault tokens, what's actually really interesting and something that I had to get some additional expertise from some Consul engineers. So thank you to Matt Keeler, who kind of helped me understand this. What is really interesting is that sometimes you have to pick and choose which battles you want to fight with your dynamic tokens, right? You don't want to use a dynamic token for everything. And you also don't want to set your dynamic tokens to expire every 30 seconds if your systems can't handle it, right? Because you do have to go and you have to get it again. And so you have to set a reasonable default time to live for your token or for any secret. You have to be conscientious of how your systems will handle it. So, fun fact that I did not know about, in the Consul, in the case of Consul tokens, Consul uses ACLs for a lot of things. So if you look at your ACLs in general, your ACLs can have some really complicated rules. For example, you can use it to read from Consul agents. You can do it for reading Consul events. You can do a lot of different things. If you're using Consul for a key value store, then maybe what you do is you want to only limit it to read from certain keys like toggle / right? Because it's so complicated though, some people have decided to actually, they really are amazing. They apply this concept of the secrets engine and dynamic Consul tokens to registration of agents or registration of services to Consul. Now, if you are more or less familiar with Consul, Consul, when it registers the agent or it registers the service, it is it's going to actually come back with kind of a notation that it's registered in there. As you can see in my Consul here, there's no other service registered, but I could have a list of services here. I also have a single node. So this in itself is registered by token, and it's actually really nuanced. You don't want to use dynamic tokens for agent registration and service registration unless you have the automation around it. What's actually very, very complicated about the dynamic tokens for agent and service registration in particular is that anytime an agent goes down or anytime a service, anytime one of those tokens is rotated by Vault, this Consul ACL token is rotated by Vault, you have to go reload it onto the agent. Tell the agent to re-register, or you have to reload the service and tell the service to re-register. So if you want to be starting your, if you want to start your agents and your services up and down, and rotate your tokens every hour, I mean, I guess you could, you have to build additional automation around it. So that's the long-winded answer to what I discovered, which is it's probably not as good of an idea to do very short dynamic tokens for things like Consul agents or Consul service registration.
I think that was one of the biggest kind of aha moments I had this week. I was working on some similar things with Vault and with Consul for an upcoming webinar, and getting to understand that, when it comes to that dynamic or just regenerating a token, it's not something that happens automatically. The functionality is there, but it's something that you need to factor in when you actually write your code or write your integration. And that was kind of of course that would be the case, but it's always easy when you know the answer, right?
Yeah. I see some questions in the chat. So writing your own secrets engine and making it 42, I plus one that. Maybe we need to do a live stream on making your own secrets engine, and we'll write it 42 with Elisa 42, just because. It's a good exercise though, because writing a secrets engine is not necessarily difficult, but for better for worse, the documentation, we're improving it. I promise we're gonna get there. But it's not very helpful sometimes, so we'll hopefully get there. And Tom asked a question about running Consul on AWS ECS backed by Fargate. So there actually will be some information and some guidance on that. There are some people who have, and who have, there is a resource available out there. ECS Fargate Consul. So there are a couple resources out there that describe that. There's one on the HashiCorp engineering blog, but by Dan, and that one, however, is EC2. So that's one thing to know. But I think you can probably map some of that to Fargate as well. And there is another one that I don't entirely remember that also does Fargate. There are a couple of them, as you can see here. So if you're interested, I put one in there, and you can actually take a look at that reference. There are some nuances to it, so if you do have questions, feel free to send me a note. I'm kind of working through some of that right now. And we also have a share, and thank you for sharing the Vault Fuse file system. I think that actually be really useful, especially in the situation that I was talking about before, which is if you have and you want to do dynamic tokens for Consul agent and service registration, you might want to try this file system where you fetch the secrets from Vault, and that way you get this easy way to restart and start up that file system. And if you would like to get in touch with questions, feel free to always send me a note on Twitter. My handle is the same as my Twitch handle, so feel free, if you are curious for more information, feel free to send a note. I'm happy to send you some resources of what I have right now on it. So great question so far. All right, so what were we doing? Going back to it.
What were we doing? I think it was, so we had talked through the path already being, that secrets engine already being enabled.
Yes, that's right. Secrets engine already enabled. So what we did was we changed the path to HC Live. It's a special path for HC Live specifically. And so if you actually have some other paths or backends, you can always configure multiple. So that's why we do it this way. Makes it a little bit easier. Now, what we're going to do is actually get to the, I guess, the more interesting part, which is now that we've configured the Consul secrets backend, we should be able to get a Consul ACL token from Vault, right? So the first thing that I'm going to make sure that I do as part of this is that I'm actually going to create a role, right? And this role is a Vault role. Don't conflate this with a Consul role, because I made the big mistake of doing that. This Vault role is not the same as a Consul role. And as it turns out, a Vault role is kind of a concept that allows you to specify what someone can do when they actually try to access Vault. So in this particular case, the role that I would like to apply specifically is, let's say, HC Live example. So this role is just going to be able to read policies or something, right? That's pretty much it. So I'm going to write that, and then if you actually look at this reference, we're going to do this, or you can also proceed to link it to a role, policies read only, same thing. And if I read this, then I should be able to grab the token that just allows me to read. So what I will do is I will get HC Live example. And so this is what I said when access credentials for backend hasn't been configured. So somehow it becomes a very strange error message where it's not able to get the correct, oh, actually I wrote this wrong, sorry. I remember now. Can anyone recognize what I did wrong in this? why it's not even the right error message. So remember how I configured my backend to be console HCLI? You have to write it to the exact backend. So everybody remember that. You have to write it to the exact path. Otherwise, it does not know any better. Since console, yes, pebcac. It is a pebcac counter. We do have a pebcac counter internally on Slack. I think I'm at like, weirdly enough, I'm only at 10. So someone has to add my points to the pebcac counter.
So I need to go check that now. I wasn't aware of that. So another today I learned moment.
Yes, today we all learned. Today we all learned that if you configure a secrets backend with a different path, you have to type the different path. All right, so as you can see, this is now, I've got a new token. It's got a lease, and here I have this interesting token. You see it's renewable, so now I have this console token, which is yay. So let's actually look at this console token and let's see what I could do with it. Now the best way to do this is to not necessarily use the console UI, but I'm doing it because it's easier to demonstrate it this way. So to recap the workflow, we configured Vault to give us a console token, right? And this console token will only last an hour. So in theory, this console token should let us be able to access something in console. Now the question is, what is it doing? Well, now we can kind of access a lot of things, right? As you can tell here though, I'm not allowed to access controls. You know, I may not have access to intentions. So all of these different things are available for me to decide, whether or not I'm going to use it or not, right? And all of this is actually something you configure as part of your console and Vault backend, as well as the policies. So kind of complicated because we had a lot of terms. Taylor, is there anything that I missed in this workflow that you're like, where did we go wrong?
I'm trying to think about that right now, but nothing is firing on my brain. Might be a good time for me to drink more caffeine.
It's okay. But what's interesting about this is that it actually worked with my ACL write for some reason or another. So that's a good thing. So it means that I actually got it correctly. But what we're actually going to try to do now is show that you can use this with Terraform as well. So you would want to do this with Terraform instead of configuring it like Vault write, Vault read, or this Vault write roles situation here. Because you may or may not remember who wrote what policy and how and why, right? So the trick is to say like you need to manage it across both Vault and console. If you just do it for, let's say, console, Vault has no awareness of it. Vault right now only has awareness of what you tell it of console. So using Terraform, you kind of bridge the gap between the two. And you can continue to express the intent of what you're actually trying to configure. So we have a little bit more complex policies in this one where I want to only grant someone service prefix read. So they should be able to see the services, but they shouldn't be able to do anything to them. They can't write them. They can't do anything else with them. And then I also want to be able to do like a key read. So I want to read from only app. I don't want to read from anything else. So if I type, I don't know, if I type pebcac, it shouldn't read it from pebcac, something like that. And so what this will actually do is express the console ACL policy rules, and then I attach them to the role that I had before. So remember, this is not a console role, it's a Vault role, but you can attach the console policies to the Vault role. It's a little, I don't know, I feel like there's like, I have to have like little color coded things like signs that, go like that.
I'll have to put a feature request in for the editor to show that those the console pink or this, just to just to keep track of that myself.
I know. I was like, so when I was doing this, I seriously thought that I was configuring a console role and that console role would then get reflected in Vault because I was like, oh yeah, if I go in here and I create in ACL, well, you can't see that now, But in ACLs, remember how we were creating the role, we made it attach, it was all nice and neat, it was pretty cool. I thought that was the same role and that would get synchronized in Vault. As it turns out, that is not how Vault works in the secrets backend. Some of them you actually could specify access control through Vault, but it's not, I think it's only a very limited subset of backends. I don't think it's actually every backend. So what you see in here even, right? You see policies and access as well. And so all of these policies are not the same, right? They're not perfectly one-to-one. So you have to keep that in mind. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my nifty Terraform to actually create this more complex policy for an app team. So the app team should only be able to see certain things. They shouldn't be able to create anything or delete anything. So I'm going to run the typical Terraform workflow, which is plan, Terraform apply. And usually you would probably not put auto approve, but I'm too tired to type yes right now. Although auto approve is longer than typing yes.
I feel like it's, yeah, I run into that problem all the time with Terraform, and I just get impatient, you know, it's like 5 seconds, right? And then waiting for the yes prompt to come out, and I'm like, auto approve. Feel the YOLO.
YOLO, yes, there is Terraform YOLO. That has been in debate for a while. Some people put an alias too, TF YOLO. Okay, so we've got that configured. Aliases are your friend, they are your friend. Vault, what was it? Vault read. So let's see if we can actually see the console stuff that we just configured. I'm a little bit skeptical. Sometimes it won't let you see it because of security concerns. Like it just won't let you, you know, read some of the things that you might have configured. So for example, HC live vault read console HC. You know what? We're gonna just do this. Hold on. Vault read that. Let's actually see if we can see the roles. It was app team, I think. Okay, there we go. So we can see it. All right, so here we go. We see a lease. No leases, which is kind of good to know because we haven't actually asked for any. And then we also have policies here, the intent. We also have token type, which is client. Right now, TTL, max TTL, 0 seconds. None of this has really been configured. It will just pick up whatever the default is right now. So we should try to get the credentials, right? Roles, creds. And then you need the app team, which is the role. So now you have your token, right? Which is pretty cool. Got your token. Your lease duration, remember, is 1 hour. If you're curious to see what happens with Vault again, well, there's also, for some reason, no lease. I don't know why that is 0 lease. Some of these are actually populated by the secrets engine, so I have to dig into that further. If anybody in chat knows why lease is still 0, please let me know. Or we can investigate it. What do you think?
Thoughts.
Otherwise, it's Taylor can choose.
It's like, what am I gonna do? I'd say we can continue.
Cool. All right, so investigate. Oh, wait,
Boom.
We got something different.
Yeah, I got overruled.
Okay. Let's see. Vault role lease 0. Okay. So yes, this is literally my approach to this. All right, we have vault role read. It could be something to do more with the secrets engine. I'm going to time box this to 2 minutes. Yeah, 1 minute, 4:55, because that way we can at least, but I will return with the answer, maybe some other time. Console lease 0 vault. Oh yes, I will definitely zoom in on some of the web pages. Thank you for reminding me. They're not all zoomed in. Console secrets engine lease. I wonder why that's like that. This does not tell me anything. I feel like this is one of those situations that I'm going to have to go into the source code and look.
Absolutely. I feel like I find myself there more often than I would expect to. Not with HashiCorp tools. Typically, it's modules within Terraform and spinning some things up. Typically source code is your best friend when it comes to looking at stuff like that. But yeah, never underestimate the source code. It's the site of many secrets and revelations.
Okay. All right. So by the way, every secrets backend is backed by API calls, right? So secrets engines themselves have their own API calls, which is kind of nice. So I clicked on the API documentation, and it looks like there's parameters and stuff, but we want a read role, right? So this is what we were looking for. We were reading the role. Somehow we got a payload response of the lease, and it has no description of why the lease is the way it is. Instead, this lease seems to be 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. I'm not sure. Okay, so I am going to actually go back and look at this, and I'll report on Twitter. So definitely follow me on Twitter, and I'll look at the source code for this and see if we can find something. But that was, if you're ever curious and you're confused as to like what the payload looks like, you're welcome to look at the API docs. Here, unfortunately, they weren't as helpful, but we'll go back and we'll look at it. So, all right. So we got this Vault read roles app team. Oh, got green screen. I see you got this green screen. All right. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to try logging in with this token, right? So this token Vault gave to us. It is a Consul token. The Consul token should imagine us as the app team. The app team has intentions read. It also has read access to keys and values. So what I should do is let's actually see if this works, right? So I've logged in by this new token here, and this new token should be able to allow me to read things. So I'm going to try to create a key value. And let's see if I can create something like pedcac. Let's see. Okay, so permission denied, I'm not allowed to do it. That's expected. We expected to do that. What about ACLs? I can't do anything with ACLs apparently. As for nodes, I can always read the nodes, but I can't do anything more. And services, I can't do anything with that either. So all of these different things I'm not allowed to do. Remember, I also said I could read intentions, but I couldn't necessarily write them. So I'm going to try. It doesn't let me do that. The idea is that this is restricting me from doing a lot of different things. Now, just to prove that this is not magic and I'm not just like, oh yeah, demo, we're actually going to try that with my root token. So I'm going to go back to my root token. And we're going to do this HTTP token here. I'll log in. Yes, security. Aren't we all excited? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to create 2 keys and values. All right, someone in the chat, give me a key or value, something. I'm going to create app, otherwise Taylor.
Cool, and apologies, I know the stream's on a little bit of delay, so I apologize. Should have had Jeopardy theme music or something of that sort queued up here, but
that's fine.
Cool.
Taylor.
What is? Yes, cool. I like this key.
Yes. What was my? What access did I allow them to? App. Okay. So we can have access to Taylor and his Twitter handle. So we'll have access to Taylor and his Twitter handle. Yay. And let's see. Just because, hello world, we're going to just do that because. How about that? Okay. Oh, puns. Wait, think of a pun. False. Oh, puns false. Okay, I get it. Okay, we're gonna do that. Create.
It's like I sense some shade being thrown, but.
Puns are contentious things. I mean, I don't personally enjoy them as much. They're hard for me to enjoy. I don't know. But like a really bad pun is really bad. But I do appreciate a good one. I recognize that there's an art to puns.
I like to console people with puns about console and other things like that. So
Oh,
totally fair. Totally fair.
No.
Personal preference.
No. No, that's awful. No. No. Okay.
It's like we'll do better next session. We'll do better.
No, I don't know about that. All right, here we go. Next session, it'll be us making analogies of all 6 tools to at one point we made analogies to Lord of the Rings, and then now we're going to make analogies. I was making analogies to the Infinity Stones the other day. It got really weird. All right. Let me log out. All right, so I created the intentions. I created the keys and values, right? I'm not allowed to see anything. So I'm going to log back in with my app team token, the one that I was granted. So I'm going to get me my token back. The session has not expired. Actually, what's really interesting is that I just logged out. So what happened was that when I logged in as root, I said, all right, I need to log out and log in as a different user. And when I actually logged out and I refreshed the page, I was no longer granted access to view anything, right? So what's not exactly clear as part of the UI is that there's actually a 403 where it's access forbidden. But basically, if I'm anonymous, I'm not able to view anything. And that's why you would turn on your ACLs before that. So the session for the Vault token or the Vault issued Consul token has not expired. I'm just not allowed to view things. So actually, bad joke about the next session. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just misinterpreted the joke. Okay, all right, that's on me. Actually, when is the next session? Now that I think about it.
I think in
October.
Yeah.
October. Yeah. I mean, the next session may be expired, but we're not really sure. All right. So remember that this is our app team token. We have tried to we said we're not allowed to do anything with it, right? We can only read certain things. So what we said was we can only read keys under app. We cannot read anything else in the key store. Remember, we talked about puns being false because we denied all the puns. Remember, no puns, right? Like here, app team does not have access to puns, so thus there are no puns. You can actually see Taylor here, however, though. So app team has access to Taylor's Twitter handle, but does not have access to puns false, which is great. On top of that, in terms of the intentions, I don't think I configured them. Oh, there we go. So with the intentions, what you can see is that I actually, as app team, I can view intentions. The reason why that maybe you would grant your development teams access to intentions or to seeing the keys and values is for debugging. You may not want to grant them access to write to it, but you do probably want to give them access to at least be able to debug what's going on, because nothing is worse than a bad network rule that didn't allow services to communicate to each other. So in this particular situation, I can see that there's console that can talk to console. But again, if I try to create something, it tells me no. I need a big no sound. That'd be great. All right. So we actually have done tokens. And what you've actually just seen is that this token is only going to limit any team under app team to a certain amount of time, which is kind of nice. And you can do this to say different kinds of rules. If different teams have different access, if you're admin, you might have more access, but you don't want to give someone super user access, for example. There are a couple other ways that you would do this. So let's actually go back to this, and let me actually set the time to live to some really short period of time. 60 seconds?
I like it.
Okay, gone in 60 seconds. I'm curious what will happen. My current tokens will probably be fine because I've issued a lease of 1 hour for them. But let me just actually apply this change. So what I'm doing is I'm configuring the secret backend itself to do a default time of 60. You can configure individual credentials, individual roles to different kind of lease like lease numbers if you want. So app team could have a lease of maybe an hour versus another team might have a lease of, 10 minutes, something like that. But the idea is here, I'm just going to do it default as part of the secret backend. And then what I'll do, I'm not accessing console, but what I'll actually do here is I'll pick up some more information about the Vault role. So I'll do consul HC live roles. Sorry, it's like what is it? Rush hour. It's rush hour, and there's honking outside. I told Taylor beforehand that there's like a intersection going on. Roles, and then what was our role? App team, right? So we have our app team, still the policy, still there. So let's actually create some tokens for Consul HC Live, some new tokens for our app team. So I've retrieved it. My lease duration is 1 minute. And so in theory, I will be able to use this for a minute, right? So just to expedite this process by command line, I'm just going to use a command line because going to the console token, console HTTP token, sorry everyone, HTTP token. It's different for console. Console uses console HTTP and then console HTTP ADDR. Yeah, so they are both different. So keep that in mind. Console, console read, console list KV app Taylor. If I remember, no, I don't remember my console. Basically, by the time I figure this out, Vault will have revoked my token, hopefully. Let's see, console KV.
I think it might be. I think you're on the right track. I think it might be KV read.
Oh, KV read, yeah.
I always mix this up too with Vault and console when I'm working between the two, and between the secrets engine and KV and everything else.
Oh, I know. I forget which ones are which is why I do it through Terraform. In retrospect, I mean, I just prefer to do it through Terraform because I'll remember it. Okay, so notice I was not allowed to get anything. Which is kind of, I'm sad. I thought I had it. I thought I almost had it. Console, where is it now? Intention, yeah. Intention list. Is that? No. Get. Okay, get console. So in theory, somehow nothing has looked up. Nothing really is there. All right, well, did that revoke? That is the big question. So let's see what happened. Okay, well, I got a new one, right? I have to get a new one. So let's just make sure this works before I go back and I check whether or not that lease has been revoked. So I have 60 seconds. Someone needs to count down.
Go.
Like, how fast can I type? Okay. Okay, here we go. Oh gosh. Okay, that was tense. All right, so let's actually see what happens. Has it been a minute? I should do this on watch, actually. Let me see. All right, so we'll give it every couple seconds. It will look for Taylor's handle, and eventually we'll actually revoke the token. All right, so we'll leave it for a little bit. But you'll actually be able to usually see the lease as long as you have these accessor tokens. So this was our previous one, right? Let's see if we can actually, well, lease renew console HC Live. We'll renew our old token there. Creds app team / this one. All right, well, I can't find that lease. That's not helpful. Finding the lease. Leases, revoke lease, renew lease. Let's see if maybe I'm missing something. HC Live, creds, app, team, 2E, whatever. Well, that's interesting. I can't find the lease. Okay, well now the old one, the one that we tried that was successful for a minute, has timed out. So basically there's two options, right? In this case, if it does time out, you can sometimes renew the lease, right? So you can say, let me renew this lease. However, by this point, Vault has pretty much already revoked it because it's been a minute. And so your lease renewal would be like if you're kind of in the middle of it and, if we set this to 30 minutes and in 15 minutes you wanted to renew, then you would be able to renew that token. But because Vault has pretty much already revoked it by this point, it's no longer there. And so that's why this is a great example of why you don't want to set a really rapid lifetime, a really short lifetime for your secret sometimes. If it's for automation and you know that that automation is within like 15, 20 minutes, this is something that when I was working with Angel to figure out as part of the Circle CI pipelines, like how long do those secrets last? If your pipeline can run for 10 minutes, maybe you set your time to live for like 20 or 30. But if you know your pipeline sometimes will get jammed, you don't want to set your pipeline secret or the access to that secret within your pipeline to 20 minutes because it will time out. It doesn't have access to Vault anymore. So there are a couple nuances to setting this. And in this case, if you are a human user who's trying to access Consul, you don't want this like 60-second TTL. As you could tell, I took more than 60 seconds to type anything. And so that was not helpful.
That actually reminds me of just you saying, Circle CI and kind of like CI/CD when it comes to Vault. That reminds me, there was a GitHub action blog post, my brain trying to relate things. There's a GitHub action for Vault and automating secret injection, which I'm going to drop in the chat. It's on my to-read list, so I've not gone through this yet, but obviously, just like a good BuzzFeed title, really engaging title, it's got me hooked, so I've got to check this out later.
I would want to know what is the most clickbait tech title. But I'm trying to think of one, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
It's like serverless secret injection, insert more stuff here. That's going to get you a lot of points in your buzzword bingo chart.
I know, exactly. All right. Well, that pretty much shows the dynamic tokens for Consul. Now, what's next? Like, what do people want to see? Taylor, what do you want to see?
Honestly, I think that's really it. I'd say, kind of working with consul-template and kind of interacting with that really piques my interest, and just kind of finding some more ways to utilize this and then plug into, how to plug Terraform into that as well.
Yeah, I definitely think, so consul-template, I don't know if we'll get it done by the end of this. I mean, we can certainly try.
I think that, and even like I liked in your blog post how you gated the access with GitHub too. I did think that was really an interesting call out in terms of kind of how to delegate access and things like that. If that might be better fit too in terms of time.
Yeah, you know what? Let's actually go through the GitHub auth methods and stuff, and that way at least everybody here gets a sense of the completion of the arc. And definitely saving consul-template for another day is a good thing because consul-template can be very nuanced, right? Especially in the way that you would do it with ACLs. And in 45 minutes may not be quite right. So we'll try to scope it so that it's actually something we can explain in depth because I don't know how many people have seen Vault auth methods or not. How many on here are Consul or less Consul or more or less Vault. So if there's anything that any of you out there who, if you're confused, please do put it in the chat. I'm always happy to answer the questions. So, all right, what Taylor was mentioning was auth methods. In auth methods, basically but most of the tooling in kind of like, I guess if you're hosting it or it requires some kind of identity access, they usually integrate with other identity providers. So in the case of Vault, if you haven't noticed, it's not exactly the easiest thing to get your identity into Vault, right? a lot of this, right, if you were to actually say, I, Rosemary, need access to Vault, but Taylor, not to pick on you, Taylor, sorry, but Taylor only needs access to the Consul secrets engine for configuration. That's something that I can't capture very easily in here. The intent is very much lost, right? And so Vault is very good at identity, establishing in some ways identity by using other methods and other integrations, such as GitHub. So if you're curious, Vault auth methods, as I mentioned before, there are some overloading of terms in the Vault space. You find backend is often used to refer to both the auth methods and secrets engines, as well as storage, to a certain degree. So when you see backends, it's actually usually secrets engines or auth methods. And what auth methods do is they provide an identity layer so that Vault can actually reference that identity sort of layer and make the decision whether or not you have access to certain parts of Vault. So just like how we talked about Consul, reusing, Consul getting those tokens from Vault, and Vault kind of controlling what your Consul token has access to. It's the same thing with identity, right? In this case, you might have your organization integrated with Active Directory, OIDC, or LDAP. There's a whole series of them here. What we're actually going to do is integrate it with GitHub. So the idea is that maybe my app team has access to GitHub, which is mostly the case. My app team has access to GitHub. And when they have access to GitHub, they might only have access to certain things, right? Because GitHub as a whole has an identity system that allows you to have access to certain repositories or not have access to certain repositories. You can group people on teams. So Vault is basically using this, and it works out really well, especially because if you're someone who wants to add a secret to your payment service pipeline, you would want to be the identity verified for that payment service team, for example. So Vault in itself has auth methods. So in this case, there are a couple important notes, but similar idea, you could do this by command line. In my case, I kind of have to, in this case, you have to log in, but that's for, if you're an app team and you need to log in, you log in by this method. However, we actually need to set this up, right? So that's where this configuration section comes in. I once again do this through Terraform. It makes it a lot easier. Then I don't have to remember how I configured it. For better or for worse, I forgot how I configured it actually. So we're actually going to go back to my Terraform to remind myself how I did it, because I don't remember. All right.
And this is one of the best reasons for using Terraform, is because you can actually do that. You don't have to remember the UI steps or how you're interacting with that user interface or that experience or what that was like. You can take a look and see.
Mm-hmm. I know. I don't, half the time, like my bash history is like a mess. I don't look at it anymore, to be honest. I have to look at my Terraform.
I also fall in the category of people, instead of typing out that like 5-word command or like 100-word character command, I'll tab up infinite times until I find it again, rather than just saving time and typing it out.
I think I guess it's, there's like a development friction, and this is something I have to say, when I did my brief stint in development, I learned a lot about how people really wanted their IDEs configured, right? You want it seamless, right? And for me, the seamlessness of infrastructure automation, I would prefer to do it through Terraform rather than through UI. But that's a big debate, or even through CLI, or reverse search through your bash history. That's also an option. All right. So here, remember, we configured a secrets engine, right? So Vault, you can think of secrets engines as Vault creating tokens for some kind of integration, right? Vault becomes the generator, right? In this case, though, what an auth method is doing is trying to determine who gets access to Vault. So While Vault in some regards is determining who gets access to other things, then you have the auth method which decides who gets access to Vault. It's a little bit complicated in terminology, but hopefully that kind of expresses it a little bit better. If you want, I can also make an analogy. I will have to think on that. But with Vault auth methods, you have to actually tell it to configure it. Otherwise, it does not know what to do. It's actually important to start with kind of like the once again, backend. So you want to configure a resource called Vault GitHub auth backend, which doesn't seem like it's that complicated. But again, remember, auth backends are backends in general are an overloaded term a bit. So you have secret backend and you have auth backend. So now I have to configure an auth backend for GitHub. In this case, I'm going to try to connect to the HashiCorp organization. All right, so now that I've decided I'm going to try to configure it to connect to the HashiCorp organization, what I'll actually do is remove this because no, that might jump a couple steps. So I'll configure Vault by doing Terraform apply, Terraform YOLO. I really should alias that. Terraform YOLO. I know you're laughing.
Yeah, it's like I laugh because it's true. I need to do the same thing.
So Vault auth list. All right. So what you've seen is that we configured our GitHub backend, right? This means that it will actually go to GitHub and it will look for the particulars of, sorry, wrong file. I don't know why. Okay. It will look for the particulars of this organization, right? And so this particular, this particular backend doesn't really have too much in it right now. We can actually look at it. Vault read GitHub config. I think that's what it is. Oh no. All right, back to the CLI reference. Organization HashiCorp, we got that. Map the users. Okay. Well, that didn't tell us how exactly we're going to read the config, but I wish there was like a recurse command in Vault. Do it live. I don't remember the recursive command for Vault, but anyway, we've configured the Vault backend. So the second thing that you have to do once you've configured an auth backend, so remember it's saying GitHub, I'm going to source my identity from GitHub. You have to tell it what identities from GitHub. Right now it's saying you've got an organization, HashiCorp. I need to source identities from GitHub somehow. So in this particular case, what we're going to tell it to do is actually source the identities from GitHub's community team. For those who are not as familiar with our GitHub, we actually do use teams. Taylor, myself, and some others of the developer advocates are in a team called Community. And so we have policies and rules and such. So what this is basically saying is that we're going to take the Vault GitHub team and the app team will be linked to the GitHub team. Really, I should, I guess, call this community team. But right now, the app team has access to team community. So the team community, right, is actually going to be able to, anything in GitHub community team will be able to do something to Vault, right? So I should be able to log into Vault. So what I've done in this case is that I've decided that anybody on the community team, which I will actually change this community to be more accurate because we all need to make sure that we express our intent in code. If it's not app team and it's the community team at HashiCorp, then we should probably put community team at HashiCorp. But what I'll do is I'll basically say that anybody on the community team that is in GitHub, right, should be able to access Consul HC Live. Remember, that's the path that we had before. The Consul HC Live creds/community, right? So we'll have to reconfigure all of this. But just for the sake of this demonstration, we'll just call it app team, right? So anybody should have access to Consul HC Live creds app team, and I should be able to read. So remember, when we tried to get the Consul token, we ran a Vault read. That's the same API command as the policy. So we need to express the policy the same as the Vault command that we intend to run. In this case, I need to be able to read credentials from Consul HC Live Creds app team, as long as I am part of the community team in GitHub. I think that was like hand wave. Too many connections. I think we need a sketch pad. I feel like I need a sketch pad to diagram all this.
That's one thing that I still have to ask Armand how he does it sometimes, but one of the things that he does so well are those, sketching out all of the infrastructure diagrams. I think he uses an iPad and joins it to the Zoom, but need to ask him the secrets on that one.
I know. I feel so I apologize, everyone. It would be easier with the diagram. Unfortunately, it is not terribly easy with the diagram, with diagramming tooling. So that would be something that I need to explore. It kind of would make it easier because it's a lot of systems and working in tandem. All right, so what I've done now is I've applied the changes. So if I actually look at the auth backend, Vault, auth, GitHub, Vault, read, GitHub. I want to say it's GitHub access. Oh, with the command line. This is one of those things that I don't want to try to do. But let's actually try to look at the UI instead. I think that might actually be more helpful. Okay, so remember we had token before. That was the way that we accessed Vault before. And now I have an auth GitHub, right? So now I have this way to say, okay, I'm going to actually be able to access GitHub with this particular thing, right? Now notice there's no secrets in here. I don't have any other information about what happened, or if there's a GitHub token, API token even. There's nothing of that sort, really. I could configure it, although there's nothing, like I said, there's nothing really here that, that gives me any indicator of configuration. And that's because the auth, remember, is being sourced out to GitHub. So for the most part, Vault is able to make the API calls so long as you give Vault the right token when you log in. So it doesn't need to store the token, right? If it stores the token for the auth method, then it loses the whole point of using GitHub as an auth method. So here, what we're actually looking at are just the configuration. It's saying, okay, go to the HashiCorp GitHub org, and these are the things that I need you to do. So I'm going to go back here, and I'll actually do a Vault login. Now, the trick with Vault right now is that I'm actually accessing Vault on a root token. Remember, that's a big no-no usually. Securing Vault is a whole other concept that I always intend to live stream, but I never get around to. But in this case, let me just pretend I am app team. I'm the community, right? Team, and I need access to my Consul instances keys, and I need my access to Consul instances intentions or something. So what I'll do is I will do a Vault login. I think it's method. You can tell that I don't remember entirely. Yeah, Vault login method, right? So I need to be able to log into GitHub right there. So what I'll do is I'll do Vault login by GitHub, right? And you'll actually notice that if it goes like this, it's going to ask for a personal access token. Vault login method. There's a password, I think, right? I'm trying not to expose my GitHub token because that is actually important. There we go. Token, my token. Okay. So usually Vault has its own token methods, right? That's where you see this s dot something, 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 something. And so usually you would specify that token. But what you now can do is say, I can just use my own token. I don't need to create one specifically from Vault. What I do is I just include my own GitHub token. Let's see if this Oh no. Oh no.
Why?
Why? Okay. We're going to go scoot this off screen for a second so that no one can see me add my token. Sorry, everyone. I know this is very awkward. Oh no,
Yeah,
that doesn't.
I can do like a little interpretive dance in the side, distract, sleight
Okay.
of hand.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, we're going to pause the share for a moment. And Taylor, if you see things, I expect you to tell me that you're seeing things.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So far, so good. I've run into the same thing as well in terms of with all of the recent changes to the Docker Hub registry and everything there. Definitely seeing some people move over to GitHub, and with that, you have to set the GitHub token to start pulling container images from there. So that this song and dance I'm starting to feel a little bit as well in terms of how to set it up the right way and how not to expose things.
Oh my gosh, I should just say like there should be something that allows me to omit it so no one can see it on my live stream. All right, so basically this gave me a little cranky message that said HTTPS blah blah blah. Remember, this is what Taylor mentioned before, which is you need to tell it explicitly to use HTTP. So we will do that for Vault 8200.
That's one of the most common things that I run into personally is forgetting to set that because it's set for local. It's very easy to stand something up for local, but that cranky message is a dear old friend of mine.
Oh yes, it is. It's not happy. Oh, sorry. Rush hour today. All right, so now that I've logged in, remember, okay, so I used my GitHub token. I then proceeded to log into Vault using said GitHub token. This GitHub token verified that I am indeed part of the HashiCorp organization and that I am part of the community team. I suppose I could put a different token in place, and you can see that I will not be able to authenticate. So let me just put something like whatever. And it will say bad credentials, right? Or an invalid credentials or doesn't have access. I really don't want to ask other people for their credentials. Please don't put them, I don't want to try your credentials, please. But yeah, the idea is that here I have the ability to now log in and now I have a Vault token. So this Vault token I'll actually be able to use, but remember, this Vault token doesn't really do much, right? All it lets me do and Taylor by default, by extension, if he had access to this Vault instance. By extension, we would only be able to get a console access token. So let's actually try this, right? So I'm going to sign in by a token. And you'll notice that I have access to not really anything. I maybe have some access to Cubbyhole, but that's my own thing, right? That's because that's my user. There's not access to anything. There's really nothing in here, right? So one of the things that you can do as part of Consul, or as part of Vault specifically, is you can actually try to Vault read from here. So what I'll do is I'll try to Vault read HC Live creds and then app team. And you can see that I did actually get the token. So this is a new token for me to access Consul, etc. But I authenticated with GitHub. Remember my policy. Let me see if I can actually do something else. Like, what do we do? Role, right? App team, permission denied. So by locking some of this down on the auth method side, right, you can secure Vault. So you secure Vault by using the auth methods to generate the tokens, put together the policies, and then to secure Consul, you can use Vault to generate dynamic tokens and then limit the kinds of things people would do in Consul. So there's kind of like two steps. And then if you want to put it all together for dramatic effect, the honking outside, if you can hear it, for dramatic effect, you could use Terraform to do it. So that's pretty much a quick summary of all the things that you could possibly do with ACLs, Terraform, Vault, and Consul.
Awesome.
You could try it with consul-template too.
Any questions from the community or anyone? Is there anything that you'd like to see before we wrap things up and leave you on this fine Friday, this wonderful Friday?
Yeah, I know it's a Friday. I'm just curious. So I have sushi Fridays, so I eat sushi. Although I've decided to deviate maybe to pizza. So if you don't have questions, that's okay. But you can also post on what you plan to have for your Friday. That is also acceptable.
I really like this. I've got, because everyone does Taco Tuesdays, typically we do Taco Thursdays because it's easier to get supplies. Shoot, I just gave away my secret. But rather than my GitHub token, so I'll take that. But I'd absolutely like that. Definitely need to think on Fridays. Pizza, I like that one. We just started working with pizza dough and coming up with our own recipes for that. We actually just got into pizza sauce and how to make a good pizza sauce. So really excited.
Oh yes, sushi and gyoza. See, there we go. Another sushi person. All right, but I guess in terms of caveats to this whole setup, I think it's worth talking about some of the limitations or some of the reasons why you maybe don't want to fully do this, right? Or why you maybe, you do want Consul ACLs to be managed somewhere. You do need to have it declared. You should do the ACLs. That's a good way to secure it. But there are, as I pointed out, there are some nuances. If you are doing something like service registration or agent registration and you're trying to limit the lifetime of those tokens, you might find it really difficult to have automation that basically restarts the service or restarts the agent each time you get a new token. So that's one caveat to it. The second caveat to it is that the Vault Terraform providers, the Vault Terraform provider specifically, does as best as of the job it can do, not showing secrets, right? So for better or for worse, you may or may not be able to see too much in terms of secrets here. It tries to obfuscate some of them, but as you can see, you can actually see my token for Consul that I was using to configure the Consul secrets engine, right? So you're able to still retrieve some of the tokens and some of this information, the secret information from the Vault provider for Terraform. And the practice in general, and this is a pretty common question for Terraform providers overall, is like, why isn't this encrypted in state, right? Shouldn't it be encrypted in the state? I will leave it to Taylor to answer that, or to determine if there's a better approach to this.
Absolutely. So that is it's I believe it's still an open issue on the Terraform GitHub repository, and something that we've seen quite a bit, especially in my personal context. It's always been around like AWS and RDS, the relational database service instance, and passwords. You don't want people to see that, and so when it comes to where you're storing your state, obviously in most contexts you want to store your state remotely because something can happen to your machine, heaven forbid, but you always have to account for the worst, plan for the worst, hope for the best when it comes to your Terraform state. So utilizing remote state, whether that's with Terraform Cloud, Terraform Enterprise, an S3 bucket, Consul, there are tons of backend options for Terraform state storage. And that's where you can really work with encrypting and making sure that the state is in a place where you want it and you feel safe and secure with it. Personally, I work for HashiCorp, so I like Terraform Cloud. There is a free tier. And so if you just want a really quick and easy way to work with that, I'd recommend checking that out, setting it up. It's just like GitHub. There are paid tiers available, but again, like GitHub, they have a free tier as well. I like that because it's just the easiest way for me to kind of not worry about that abstraction and know that my state is safe, even if it's something like a demo. I don't want to accidentally leak a GitHub token or anything like that. So I really like that option and when that's available. But no way to encrypt that currently. But if you're storing your state in a place where you can actually work with that, that's the best way to abstract that for the time being. Oh, and I think you're muted, Rosemary.
Darn mute button. Yeah, and in the Consul you know, in the console provider and some of this, you know, you can still encrypt it yourself, PGP encrypt, right? Some of the tokens so that someone who is looking at state cannot access it. So if you do choose to do that, you can. In this case, we didn't. It just makes it easier for demo. But the idea is that you would not be able to see this if you did PGP encrypt that. The other interesting thing, or the other important thing that, you know, to realize as you configure Vault and as you configure Consul, is that both of them actually have different rule engines, so to speak, right? So the rules that you say happen, I mean, they're very similar in the language, right? For example, they're path-based. A lot of Vault itself, you know, and how the ACL system works in Vault is path-based. It's very similar in Consul, but Consul does offer some abstractions like ACL write, which is what we saw before. So you might have ACL write, you might have service prefix. Those are abstractions so that you don't have to necessarily sit here and find the path, which is what I had to do for Vault, right? Now, because these two are, they both use HCL, but they don't have exactly the same language, right? You don't see path something for Consul, as a good example of that. You may not be able to necessarily enforce them that easily. And I think this is something that goes with ACLs in general, right? The language of ACLs is pretty complicated. The way you declare ACLs in one provider or one cloud isn't always the same as how you declare roles and define access in other clouds. And so the general rule of thumb is that you can use some kind of policy as code to do these checks if you do it through Terraform, or even if you do decide to create the ACL kind of configuration and then you do that, some elsewhere. You don't have to do it through Terraform. In this case, as part of the example, I put in a Sentinel policy, and the Sentinel policy will actually, dramatic on a Friday today. And so the ACL policy will actually, check, or the ACL policy will actually run through Sentinel, and Sentinel will check if it has a write. So here, very intent, as much intent as I can say, which is ACL policies do not have write rule, so we'll check that ACL policies do not contain the write rule. You can use this with many other policies code frameworks. If you do it through Terraform, you can use OPA, you can use Competition, which is a layer around it. You can use Terraform compliance. I mean, there are a number of things that you can use to check whether or not these policies are too wide for the group that you're trying to configure them for. But it's not like these policies come out of the box and you just get a secure Vault and Consul right off the bat. You do have to check whether or not these policies are actually good or bad. It's kind of like checking for an S3 bucket policy. Sorry. I will say that, in terms of other caveats, I think the biggest one to me has been the dynamic tokens for Consul and when to use it, when not to use it. But a lot of this, in terms of the conversation around securing Consul and Vault, I hope this at least provides a better sense of what you can and cannot do and how you might approach it. As an exercise, if people would like to do it themselves, I challenge you to create consul-template and configure tokens such that consul-template will be able to access or not access certain keys and values in Consul. So if you're curious, consul-template is here. And it is a way that you can template all these values from Consul. Any requests, Taylor?
Ooh, I would say, honestly, I think the Spring Boot integration was one I thought was pretty cool for those out there using Java. I know that I came from a big entertainment company, and so there's a lot of Java use, a lot of Angular use. So that was one that was really nice to have available to us. I did like how you could execute the Consul template for we would write some, working with some Docker containers and then starting that as the first process so you could inject in those environment variables as needed and integrate with Vault. That was also a lot of fun. And then we also had auto reload. So You could turn that on and off. So as you change those values, that process would restart with whatever configuration you needed. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually have an example, which is, I'm so happy that this is the first time that this example has come up. Yeah, so I have this .NET and Java Spring Boot example, and you can use it, you can borrow it, I'll paste it into the chat, but it does have all this like console templating and stuff and all these various forms of feature toggling and ways that you would do it in here. There's mostly .NET, sorry everybody. But there's, let me see if I can pull my console template one, and at least we can just do this really quickly maybe. So I'm just going to drop this into my Docker Compose and we'll see how this goes. All right, thank you very much for joining, for those who are, who have to head out. All right, so we'll just try console template. I'm just going to tell it to go to console 8500. Right, and what I will do is, because we've done this really terrible thing where we've now done 60 seconds, I'm going to put it back to an hour. Okay, there we go. And let's actually do this. Let's just do ls app, right? So let's actually look at that app key value, right? And that's pretty much all we're going to do. I don't think we're going to do too much other than this. And then, let me see, volumes. Oh yes, this is also important too. Okay, we have 15 minutes. Let's see if we can do this in 15 minutes.
Like, yay. I feel a little bit better about that than the 60-second token that you generated.
I just joke, gone in 60 seconds is great. Gone in, I'm telling you, gone in 60 seconds. It's amazing. App values. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll actually load template and then I'll actually tell it to go into app values. So let me grab my example because I do need to ensure that it works properly, lest it not work at all. Okay. All right. So there's nothing in here. Values. Let me just call this values. Rename values. Okay. So as a rapid discussion of console template in general, console template automatically retrieves values from console and then writes them to a file of your choice or some kind of sync of your choice. So in this case, I'm going to try to write it to temp app values. As you can see, I am going to mount it locally, so you will be able to actually view those values. This is using Docker Compose, and this is just an easier way to ensure that you'll be able to get the view of the actual toggles. So in theory, what we should get is Taylor's Twitter handle out of console and into a file. So that is the theory. We shall see if it works. I am very doubtful. We shall try. And just to make it a little bit easier, because also we'll probably Docker Compose up. We'll try. Let me see if it will either recreate it. Okay. So it did create it, right? And you see these values, but you see nothing. There's nothing in there. There's no information. What is happening? So let's actually take a look at the logs and see what happened with console template. Docker PS. And let's actually take a look to see what's going on. Because it's either not getting something, oh, it's not getting anything at all. Well, that's fascinating. Usually you see it is up, which means it's doing something. Unfortunately, it appears that it is not actually accessing anything. It did write something. I believe that the logs are probably not streaming correctly though. But part of the thing that is important to understand about the console template is that it does need access to console. So the question is, and I will direct this at Taylor because you're the only one on the stream that I can see face to face, but does it have a token to console?
That's a good question. I don't My guess would be no.
Yep. So you're right. It does not have a
Yes.
token to console, which means it, goodness, that's a Friday. It means it can't access anything. It can't write anything. It doesn't know what to do. So just to, just for the sake of repetition, but also just for, just for fun, let's actually get a new token for our app team, right? Because remember, app team has access to the keys and values under app. So let's see if we can actually give it keys and values. So what I'll do is I'll read from the Vault instance, console HC live /creds /app team. So let me get some new tokens. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a big no-no. You would usually use Vault agent for this, for example, to actually retrieve it from Vault. Don't do this. This is just for the sake of example. And it may not work. So sorry, everybody. We might have some trouble here. But we'll actually try to create that. And then we'll see if it actually yields the same result or not. Compose. All right, so let's see if we have a token that actually gives us access to Vault, whether or not we'll actually be able to get something. Okay. So now I see it's been recreated, and I also have Taylor's Twitter handle.
Yes.
Well, actually, that's so surprising. I'm surprised it worked in 5 minutes. We should have just done this before, Taylor.
I'm happy that we have the blessing from the demo gods on a Friday. That's suiting. That's fitting.
By the way, none of this was planned, so I was expecting this to go horribly awry, and we would like leave on like a cliffhanger. No.
Yeah, and you can see literally nothing up my sleeves. I promise. Not even wearing sleeves.
Yeah. Oh goodness. So the one cool thing about consul-template that's actually really neat is that if you do, what it will do is actually, it asynchronously reads from console. So basically it's almost like kind of locally going in and it's saying like, okay, let me look and let me keep reading from console. Let me check if there's any differences. Under the hood, it uses something called a console watch. And console watches are really powerful. They basically allow console to go watch for values and changes in values. So what this is doing is actually using console watch under the hood and looking at console and saying, hey, did anything change? Can you tell me if anything changed? And so I went into console. I actually decided maybe what I'll do is I'll create a key for Rosemary now, and then I'll put my Twitter handle in it, just because it's fair. So now what I'll actually do is see if this synchronizes as part of console, right? So in theory, console template is still up and running, and it should be able to actually view that something is going. But actually, if you noticed, it appears that it does not have access. So somehow it does not have access to read everything in it anymore. And that's probably because I didn't do a Terraform apply, and it was gone in 60 seconds.
That makes sense.
Once again, bitten by this. Terraform apply, auto approve. And just to show I'm not lying, I'm going to go back and delete me from this. Okay. All right, we changed it now. I'll read this. Let's grab these tokens because it was gone and it revoked it. Okay, so let me just do this again. We're going to create a new token and it will recreate my container. And as it does that, it will once again look for values under app, under the app key. And I should see, once again, Taylor's Twitter. And hopefully, if I have not had a revocation of my token, I will be able to finally see my Twitter handle in there. All right, so there we go. So in literally like a second, it was updated, and now you see my Twitter handle in there. So the idea is that If, as you noticed, after a minute, it was revoked, Consul template could no longer render anything. And so in this particular situation, you would have to find a couple other ways, right, to automate the dynamic token that is issued from Consul and then ultimately ejected into Consul template. All right, we have 5 minutes left. Any wrap up? Anything anybody else wants to see?
Any questions? Otherwise, I can go through some quick fun announcements and end everything off. But yeah, please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, or any topics that you want to see on here in the future. Like what's valuable. Like we can hack away at it. It's not going to be perfect, so we'll hack away at it. Also, do you want me to stop sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump back to my screen.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we talked about secrets and vaults, but yeah, obviously don't keep any questions you have a secret because we would like to answer them. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that the puns flag is turned to false. So we'll round everything out. Again, if you have any questions, I'll take a look before we close things out. But please check out HashiConf Digital. That's our conference that will be going on between October 12th to October 15th. We have several fun announcements. We have so many good talks lined up. Will be an absolute blast. And you don't even have to make it there physically. It's a digital conference. So please check it out. Please join and have fun talking HashiCorp tools with us.
Yeah.
That'll be Western daytime hours as well for those of you that are curious.
Yeah. And as always, if you want to get in touch with us, feel free to message us on Twitter. Happy to answer questions, or if you're interested in even hopping onto a live stream and just, programming, pairing with us, trying to figure things out, you're welcome to do that as well. I think we still have yet to determine why the lease is 0 for Consul Secrets Engine, so I'll definitely try to tweet that out and once I figure it out. But if you have feedback or if you want to see something specific on here, always reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Thanks for showing up. This video will be posted up on YouTube, or you're watching it on YouTube and, no spoilers. But thank you very much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing and talking with you soon. Please reach out if you have any questions, and have a fantastic Friday.
Hi, everyone.